U.S. soccer has a football or soccer cultural problem crisis in the United States. And I'm going to show you how in 3 steps we can solve this together as a country to actually focus on putting the kids first. I'm Kyle Wilson. I am a individual that's been involved in the youth soccer game for 10 years as a youth soccer coach, director, and owner of an organization and club, also with our own residency program. And I have trained many top professional players that have played in the MLS, that have played internationally in Europe. So one of them being Luis Nani, who just officially retired. But I've trained him. I've trained a bunch of guys from Orlando City Professional. And I have had the unique experience to work with children as young as 2 years old, all the way up to pro players, including a generational talent named Cauã Brasil, who has a $3.5 million contract from Nike. I don't have every single answer, but I'm simply sharing my perspective. So I want to solve this problem because we have a crisis in the United States of a cultural problem. Now, I will emphasize, I don't have every single answer. I don't. But I do believe I have the solution to fix the cultural problem or lack of cultural problem. So what I mean by this is everybody talks about, well, we don't have kids that want to play in the street, that play pickup soccer, that want to go outside and practice soccer on their own outside of team practice. I agree. We have this problem. And this problem will continue to widen the gap of the ability of the United States men's national team to win a World Cup. So I don't believe that we can be serious as a country to say, hey, we're on the right path to win a FIFA Men's World Cup, not talking about women, just on the men's side, until we correct this systemic issue of a lack of football culture. I like football better than soccer in terms of the perspective of the word. Now, without further ado, let's talk about how we can fix it. There's 3 main things that we're going to talk about. The first one is changing the age group formats of youth. We have to fix youth before we can talk about professional or adult. The second one is putting goals on basketball courts, which I'll tie into later. And the third one is starting at home with mom and dad. Now, I'll tie this all together, but let's go point by point, one by one, how these can fix the cultural problem that we have. Now, I will add, this will not happen overnight. These changes need to be put in and then add 20 to 30 years before we start seeing the fruit of that progress. Now, like I said, the first one is change the age group formats. Well, what does that actually mean? It's simple. We have a crisis, especially in the 6 to 12-year-olds. Now, what I have noticed is, from my perspective, it looks like U.S. soccer thinks that we are like individually as a country, we're like Brazil, we're like Spain, we're like England, we're like France. That couldn't be further from the truth. Now, what does that mean? If they think that we're like Brazil, Spain, England, France, we have kids that are growing up with football. They want to play football nonstop. Like if you go to Brazil, kids want to play football. You go to Spain, kids want to play football. You go to England, kids want to play football. Now, we don't have that culture. We have other sports as well, but I don't think the other sports is necessarily a problem. I think it could be a small factor to the lack of success we're having. However, we want to have street culture. We want kids to go outside and play football. I want kids to go outside and play football. But we're not meeting the American children at their level. If we're not meeting them at their level, why would they go play football? Follow me for a moment. If we change the formatting from U6 to U12, instead of 77 and 9v9, and we incorporate 2v2s for U6 to U8, we incorporate 3v3s for 9v9, for U9 and U10, and then U11 and U12, we do 5v5. So I'm going to summarize that again for you. So I have it here on my piece of paper. 2v2 for U6, U7, and U8. 3v3 for U9 and U10. 5v5 for U11 and U12. This is for the country. Now, when we talk about these formats, why is this important? Why would I highlight this? Well, we have kind of 2 main things. The first one is in current formatting, based on 77 and 9v9, American children are not incentivized to go play football outside. Well, when I say they're not incentivized, what does that actually mean? They don't have a reason to want to go outside to play football or practice football. They can practice twice a week with their club team. They won't have an issue. They can go outside, play with their club team twice a week. No issue. And then they go play games on Saturday or Sunday. And they go to a tournament. But if we want to have a culture of football and kids are going outside to practice football or to play with their friends playing football. If we look at basketball, for example, we have courts all over the country for basketball. When you look up when you look at a pickup basketball game, what are they playing? It's 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, or 5v5. They're not playing above 5v5. Maybe in some rare existence do they play above 5v5. Otherwise, it's 1v1 to 5v5, and then they might have like 2v1s, 3v2s, different formattings of gameplay in the street. Well, we're asking kids to go play pickup games at 7 versus 7 and 9v9 because that's what the game looks like for them, and that's what parents want in this country. And I think this is a big miss from U.S. Soccer, understanding that we have to deal with parents in pay-to-play. Well, if parents want their kids to play real soccer, which according to U.S. Soccer is 7v7, 9v9, and 11v11, where do you think parents are going to want their kids to go play? Especially ones that are uneducated. They're going to want their children to go play 7v7 and 9v9. But all the research shows that I have done, that I have seen with my own eyes, this format of 2v2, 3v3, and 5v5 is huge. And I'll give you a personal example. I was in Brazil less than a month ago. And this is why this will lead to the next step of 2, put goals on basketball courts. They had a bunch of courts all over the country in different parts of Sao Paulo that I was in primarily in the state of Sao Paulo. And they had basketball courts everywhere, but they were futsal fields combined with it. So they had a basketball court, what we would call a basketball court here in the United States, with futsal lines and goals along with basketball. But what do you think the kids played? Football. So if the game is not accessible to all kids, where there's a goal, there's lines, then they'll want to go play. At least you give them the opportunity to go play. But it has to come hand in hand with the 2v2, the 3v3, and the 5v5 format from U6 to U12. If we do that, we can then incentivize children to want to go play with their friends and go play more football outside of team practice. Why? Because the formats now are what they get to practice and what they get to play. So for example, let's say U9 and U10 is 3 versus 3. Children then say, oh, well, I can go outside and practice on my own to get ready for the game on Saturday because I just need 3 players. And I can play 2v2, I can play 3v3, I can play one-on-one. Vice versa, 7 versus 7. You need 14 players to go play a pickup game of 7 versus 7. That is, especially in this country, I don't want to say impossible, but close, borderline to impossible. So we solve all those little action steps by just changing the age groups from 7v7 and 9v9 to 2v2, 3v3, and 5v5. Children will be incentivized to play because they can practice for their game on Saturday outside of team practice. Okay, the second part of this is using the same thing about the age group formats. We are not Brazil. We are not Spain. We are not France. We're not Argentina. We're not Holland. We're not Germany. Now, I think that's important to note because I believe that U.S. Soccer has this fascination that we're close to what they have from a youth development standpoint. We're not close. We can pretend all we want, but if we don't have kids that are culturally playing football, that are bought into the sport, that we're not there. So most of the kids that are getting into the game are starting at 5 or 6 years old, have never touched a soccer ball in their life except maybe 20 times. They've maybe, and this is a maybe, watched 2 to 3 to 4, if any, professional games. So if they're not watching professional games on TV, they're not seeing the repetition of the ball or the game. Same thing, if you go outside into Brazil, like the number of times when I would walk around and you could see either kids playing pickup or adults playing pickup or matches or training going on or culturally bought into watching football, yeah, they have it. In Spain, they have it. In England, they have it. In France, they have it. Our children are starting football too late, and they're kicking into a soccer ball versus playing the game of football. So this is where, again, 2 ties into this. If we put soccer goals or futsal goals and lines on basketball courts across the country, then we can already have that buy-in of kids possibly wanting to go into the court and playing. That's how you start building street culture because they have it in Brazil. Now, I will add Brazilian culture is obviously slightly different, but they have fields or courts everywhere. And it could be grass, it could be concrete, it could be dirt, it could be sand, but they hit all those types of facets for playing. We don't have that type of culture yet where everybody wants to be on pristine grass, not just necessarily where they can play. Now, if you tie this all together, and this is probably it's the third one, but maybe arguably the most important is a program that starts football at home. So if children currently are starting football at, let's say soccer at this point, are 5 and 6 years old, they've barely touched the soccer ball, and they haven't watched the game, they are years behind Brazilian players, Spanish players, French players that normally get a ball as their first gift, and they're culturally involved by watching, as a young child, their brothers, their parents, their friends, everybody around them, around the game of football. So there must be a program that, it can be me, or you can use somebody else that has built one, that puts together a program where children can practice with mom and dad at home. And it's just about, in lamest terms, making the ball the child's best friend, and then implementing in a 1 versus 1 scenario against mom or dad. So, quick example, we're running a camp here at our indoor facility, completely free, where all you had to do is bring a gift, so you don't have to pay for it. You just bring a gift to help support the community as we're going to take these 2 underprivileged children. Now, there were 2 children, both 2019 here. Both 2019, so they're 5 years old, maybe one just turned 6. And you can already see the foot skill advantage that they have, even as American children, playing because they have older brothers that have been playing, and they're learning from them, and they're playing at home. They don't play on an official team yet, but they have significantly better foot skills than the average American child coming into the sport because they have the improvement of foot skill, which is critically important. They already have the ability to beat somebody 1 versus 1. They're not necessarily throwing like fakes and whatnot, but they're dribbling past the opponent, they're pulling the ball, they're pushing the ball, they're using the inside, the outside of their foot. If you take a child that has never played the sport, has no cultural background, no family heritage in it, and you put them on a soccer field, they're going to look like a duck walking with the ball. So to solve that problem of not being a duck at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, they start younger. They start at 1, they start at 2. And versus saying, hey, pass the ball or kick it, which is things that my parents told me as a 3-year-old, kick it. No, dribble it, push it, pull it. Make the ball their best friend. And by doing all these changes, it will not happen overnight. It will not be tomorrow that US Soccer comes out and says, hey, we're changing the age group formats. We're going to make sure that goals are on every single basketball court with lines, and that the program starts at home with mom and dad. It'll take, let's say, 2 years, by 2026 if it started today, to have it all implemented in. And then it would take 20 to 30, maybe longer, 40 years, where you would start seeing, after the 20th year, this generational change of culture. But if we want the United States men's national team to win a World Cup in my lifetime, we're not going to be serious about it until these changes happen. So, emphasizing that in a different way. We will not be, or at least I will not be, serious about the United States men's national team winning a World Cup until these types of changes have happened. And there's more, by the way, that need to change. But it's unrealistic to expect the United States men's national team to win without these fundamental changes to happen, because we don't have the culture. We don't have the buy-in of families and players, children, and it's not fundamentally available or incentivized for children to want to go play football. So until that point happens, we cannot expect the United States men's national team to win a World Cup, my humble opinion. And I'll even give you a bonus one, so instead of 3, we'll make it 4, about how to build that pickup culture in the United States, or build a general culture that we don't have. So what we have found is we've created a program called Beast Residency. And many times I have attempted to build a pickup culture in club soccer. So I've had a club, I've worked for clubs, and I've attempted on multiple occasions to build that pickup type of culture where kids come out and play. And let's say out of a club of 300 to 600 players, we're getting 15 to 20 kids to come play football. Well, how are we going to continue to build that culture if out of 300 to 600 players, we're getting 1 to 3% of them to show up and play? Well, that's not a good return. So through our residency, which I believe is probably the greatest tool for student athlete but player development in this country based on the current formatting with pay to play and whatnot, even on the second day, we've had children play pickup soccer every single day. So starting the second day when we started in August 2024, which would have been August 20th, kids have been playing pickup every single day since then. So we're here Monday through Friday. Kids are playing pickup every Monday through Friday between school. So like they would have a recess, so to speak. We call them breaks, but they get breaks. During break, they leave the classroom, we leave our fields open, and the kids go out and play more football because there's no iPads, No cell phones, no electronics, except for computers that they need for the school. Otherwise, they are playing every single day. So when I'm watching the second day and I'm going, wow, these kids are playing pickup soccer. And I'm like, this is how you build that culture, a residency model. Now, what I will say is a residency model is not for everybody. It's not. But the kids that have those aspirations of being a great person, a great student, and a great athlete, this is the type of environment that will get them to thrive in it. Now, not for everybody, but I'm just explaining in a different facet how one simple change in model, so to speak, with a residency where student athletes are here from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. every single day, we've built now a pickup culture. Whereas expected, the kids just go out after school or between school and go play. That's a fundamental, huge piece that we got to win on in the second day of school. It's huge. So that's why it's a bonus. I don't think that residency fits everybody. It doesn't. But it does fit a certain facet of players that demand and strive for the best. But that cultural impact was created on the second day. And I've attempted to do this over 10 years, creating pickup cultures. Not easy to do, but step by step, in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the United States could be a serious contender at winning a Men's World Cup.